I've seen this movie, I shit you not, probably about 50 times at the minimum. The first 25 times I saw it, it was just at face value. A bully, wimpy father, weird scientist, kid time travels and has a week to get his parents to fall in love. Great movie, the perfect movie in fact. But the second 25 times I watched it, I started getting a little more bang for my buck out of it, and it kind of got the wheels turning. Not just about the butterfly effects or timeline causalities resulting from Marty's trip to 1955, which have been dissected to the hilt by people much smarter than me. But some of the Easter eggs in the movie, though, were so obvious, like the twin and lone pine thing, that you'd have to be legally blind in order to have missed them. Having said that, I do have a theory that I'll get to in short order. First, though, I've always seemed to gravitate to Biff Tannen, a fascinating case study and a fan favorite in the series. The actor who portrayed him is, by all accounts, one of the nicest guys and certainly one of the funniest you'll ever meet, and had the talent to pull off a character who was so diametrically opposed to his own personality that he should have gotten a special award or something. And here's why. Biff, he's a wet fart of a human turd. He wasn't even smart enough to be truly evil in the cunning sense, but was rather more along the lines of an underdeveloped baboon and rotten to his very core. He tries to kill Marty several times throughout the series, and he bullies, publicly humiliates, and extorts homework and money from George McFly. He accosts Lorraine almost every time he sees her in the school cafeteria, even attempting to rape her in that car at the school dance, and was probably on his way to rounding second base when George finally showed up. These are the things I didn't notice when I was 16 or 17 years old. He's got Marty pinned to the front of his car and was literally going to cut him in half by ramming him into the back of that manure truck. I originally never gave it much thought and just kind of saw it as a fast-paced cat-and-mouse scene, which I guess it is, but then later I'm wondering why the cops never showed up. With half the townsfolk watching, he speeds around and through the town square with no regard for anyone's safety, attempts to murder someone, crashes into a truck, and nobody called the police. Biff's no-consequence actions are a not-so-subtle foreshadowing of the alternate timeline where he can literally get away with murder. And just for the record, who the hell hired him as an office supervisor anyways? He's got McFly doing his reports for him. But in the primary timeline, did he go to college and get a business or admin degree? Did some HR manager not see what an utter nincompoop he was? I would have loved to have been a McFly on the wall for that interview. But now, for my crackpot theory. The big question I had, as I'm sure everyone else did, was why did George and Lorraine, years later, allow Biff to remain in their lives and even credit him for their falling in love? My temporal breakdown tells me this. When Primary Marty wanted desperately to warn Doc about the Libyans, he sets the clock back 10 extra minutes when Doc had it set for the exact moment that he left 1985. The car ends up breaking down again after he arrives back, and he has to abandon it in the town square. This triggers a chain of temporal reactions because there are now 2 time machines in the same timeline, and soon to be more since we know they always return to the primary timeline. And outcomes could change each time as we have no idea if each successive Marty will save his peeping Tom dad from getting hit by a car. If the primary timeline is altered again by Marty B, then Primary Marty would vanish at some point in the middle of the night after Doc Brown drops him off to make way for Marty B, who spent that time in 1955 more focused on converting Biff from the world's greatest asshole into the lovable, friendly guy he was at the end of the movie. He finds Doc before the encounter with his father, and he puts Marty B in charge of Biff conversion, as he needed Biff to get them to fall in love. And so Marty B used similar scare tactics that his primary counterpart did on George in order to frighten and brainwash Biff into becoming a really sweetheart of a guy, being a friend to George and helping set him up with Lorraine. Hence, at the end of the movie, when George gives Biff credit for their falling in love and Marty peeks through the door at Biff, he's fully aware of how it all played out because he's the one that did all of that to Biff, but also a little weirded out that Biff actually remained a nice guy 30 years later and was a total McFly lackey. So that's my half-baked theory. I specifically didn't search out this particular theory to see if someone else thought of it first because, well, it's all I could come up with at the time, and it would have been a total bummer if someone else beat me to it. But I'm sure someone did. The Biff, George, and Lorraine triangle is one of the more popular talking points in the movie, along with how many Martys could have been in 1955. I guess there would be 3 Martys, 3 time machines and 2 Doc Browns, or 3 Doc Browns if you count his grave. And don't even get me started on the fact that since the movie only seems to address the single timeline aspect of temporal displacement, and we know Marty will keep going back, why wouldn't November 5th, 1955 suddenly be completely overrun with an infinite number of Martys and time machines? I'm not that smart, so I'll have to go read a few physics books and get back to you all.